Welcome back. So for this part 2 of how strong Heisei Godzilla is, instead of just going forward, we have to give further context on the era between Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 and Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla. After the Godzilla series was done, Toho released another trilogy of films known as the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy. This features a creature called Mothra Leo, who is stated to be the strongest Mothra ever put to screen more than once, so this would make him more powerful than the Mothra who faced against Godzilla. But then, we also have a guide referring to how Mothra Leo would do against Godzilla's enemies, with it being stated that Mothra cannot do anything about Mechagodzilla's diamond armor, cannot damage the mecha from the outside, and would have to go inside the mech to do any sort of damage. This means that once Godzilla gets his Spiral Ray, or at the second fight, that he would surpass Mothra Leo. It's not specific on what form it's referring to, but it does not indicate that a stronger form of Leo would be needed to face the enemies, so we can conclude that it's referring to Armament Leo, his strongest transformation. So, we will go over the Rebirth of Mothra multipliers in order to establish the difference between these kaiju. As a baseline, Mothra Leo in its base form is stated to be 3 times stronger than the Mothra who faced Godzilla. Then, in his Aqua form / Rainbow form, he is 3 times stronger once again. Then, against Cretaceous King Ghidorah, he is said to be an equal match, and his victory said to be almost a miracle. And then it is said that the difference between an adult and young King Ghidorah is several orders of magnitude. An order of magnitude is a 10 times difference. Several would mean any number between 3 and 9. This means that at even a low end, we have a difference of 90,000 times, which is consistent with Mechagodzilla's plasma grenade scaling being 10,000 times Godzilla's own atomic breath. For a mid-end, say a 6, we would then get 9 million. Due to Godzilla already reaching galaxy level of the previous calculations, we could then say, using Rebirth of Mothra scaling, he would reach multi-galaxy level. To further support that Godzilla got an insane amount stronger, we can use a short film called Godzilla Monster Planet. In this short film, Godzilla, with a single blast of his blue atomic breath, is able to one-shot Fire Rodan, the output on par with Godzilla, equal to him overall. He was also able to withstand more than one shot from the plasma grenade, redirects the atomic breath by a factor of 10,000. So this would mean base Godzilla in 1994 is worth over 2 plasma grenade shots from 1993, and is thus, at the very least, 20,000 times stronger than the Godzilla who faced Mechagodzilla the first time. Also important to scaling of this time is a movie called Orochi, the 8-Headed Dragon. Orochi is a creature of pure darkness, a god who covered the sun in order to bring the earth into destruction. It's mentioned that Orochi can destroy the planet, and in a battle with Godzilla, their fight would shatter the stars, and if he were to develop his abilities further, he might be able to overwhelm the King of Monsters. But Godzilla could counteract by evolving in turn, using an alternate translation that makes more grammatical sense. If Godzilla were the one to go all out, he would overwhelm Orochi. This would make more sense, as Godzilla is implied to be an equal to the god warrior Utsuno, who pretty handily defeated Orochi. Utsuno is stated to be an embodiment of the sun, as well as being able to shatter the stars. This gives more stellar scaling for Heisei Godzilla at this time, so if you don't buy the much higher scaling I provided, that still supports planet and star level feats. In fact, Utsuno's so strong, he could destroy the Earth by accident. You could probably even argue further, because, as we know, larger versions of kaiju are generally considered to be stronger, and Orochi in his movie is stated to have a length of 66 meters, much smaller than Godzilla's size, but as we see, his height, smaller than his length, is actually above Godzilla's, so this would be referring to a much larger, more powerful Orochi as well. A promotional guy for SpaceGodzilla mentioned that these powerful monsters also challenged Godzilla for his throne, and that he was able to defeat them in the end. This is further confirmed as guides for SpaceGodzilla refer to him as the most powerful creature in the universe, and so we can get into a much higher degree of scaling. Since we've established that Godzilla scales above the likes of the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, Orochi the 8-Headed Dragon, and the Showa era, we can get into their cosmologies and statements in order to justify Godzilla being even higher than I've said so far. Mothra Leo was stated to be granted infinite power in his base form. Now, his base form is only 3 times more powerful than the Mothra who faced Godzilla before. If you want to say that that is an outlier, it's also stated that the universe is infinite and endless, and that SpaceGodzilla can absorb infinite energy. This would justify that the universe has infinite energy, so if monsters have infinite power, then that should be literal. We also know 2 fourth-dimensional spaces exist within the universe. A fourth-dimensional space would justify the tier of Universal Plus. Now, these spaces aren't destroyed in the Showa era, but beings like Zone Fighter are able to attack monsters and objects in the 4th dimension. Some would say that that alone would justify this Universal Plus level of power, but others would not, so we'll get more into universal scaling. It's stated that Death Ghidorah, had he absorbed planet Earth's energy, could destroy the entire universe. It's mentioned that the Ghidorah race caused the extinction of a universe, and that King Ghidorah of the Mothra trilogy also destroyed the universe. It's mentioned as well that Orochi generates hyperspace energy. This hyperspace energy is able to break apart space-time and damage creatures that transcend dimensions and time. This would also further justify 4th dimensional. And since we have statements of universal beings being weaker than Godzilla, we can justify that Godzilla himself would be anywhere between high universal to low multiversal because of the 2 4th-dimensional spaces and other dimensions within the infinite Godzilla universe, being thousands of fold into low multiversal. Now we can finally talk about Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla. Moguera is stated to be the ultimate anti-Godzilla weapon, to such a degree that some guys suggest that Mechagodzilla was already repaired by the time the movie came out, but wasn't used because Moguera was simply superior. Though not film canon, the manga supports this, as Mechagodzilla is completely unable to damage Moguera, and with a single attack, Moguera shatters Mechagodzilla into pieces. We have guidebook statements that Moguera's lasers are 3 times greater than any of Mechagodzilla's weapons, so thus Moguera is 6 times stronger than Super Mechagodzilla's plasma grenade, at least. Moguera was also planned to be able to defeat the Godzilla who beat Mechagodzilla, so most likely scales above even the red spiral ray I calculated in the prior video. That should make Moguera, even in the finite scaling, at least multi-galaxy level. Personally, I favor at least Universal Plus, considering the fact that 4th dimensional universes are being destroyed by these creatures, and their powers then being multiplied thousands, if not millions of times over. This is important because both Godzilla and SpaceGodzilla withstand these attacks. In fact, Moguera scales below SpaceGodzilla to such a degree that during their first battle, SpaceGodzilla was in his flying form, not his combat form, and still easily dealt with the mech. We then see Moguera is upgraded. This upgraded Moguera performs significantly better against SpaceGodzilla in their second fight. However, even a crystal shattered SpaceGodzilla, who was then further damaged by Godzilla, is able to defeat Moguera with 1 stab from his tail. When SpaceGodzilla's crystals are shattered, his strength goes down by half. SpaceGodzilla, even at half power, can 1-tap a being who can 1-tap Mechagodzilla, or is at least 6 times more powerful. To further support this much higher scaling, it's mentioned that SpaceGodzilla almost killed Godzilla in their first battle. Considering how long it took Super Mechagodzilla to bring Godzilla down, even with such perfect counters to his abilities, should show that the power gap between Godzilla and SpaceGodzilla was bigger than it was between base Godzilla, base form Godzilla, and Super Mechagodzilla, which was over 20,000 times. By the way, the Godzilla who just almost died against SpaceGodzilla then tanks Moguera's attacks, showing just how much stronger he has become. It's mentioned as well that SpaceGodzilla is constantly absorbing Godzilla's energy in order to get strong, and that Godzilla, in the second battle, started doing so in turn. So these two started growing in turn to try and surpass one another. As mentioned in the prior video, Godzilla grows in proportion to the amount of energy he absorbs. So, if you feed Godzilla a nuke, and then give him a 200 times stronger nuke, the Godzilla who gets the 200 times stronger nuke will be 200-fold stronger. It's not unreasonable to say that SpaceGodzilla multiplied his power by that of Godzilla's atomic breath, and that Godzilla did so in turn to turn the tides against SpaceGodzilla. We see that after Godzilla absorbs SpaceGodzilla's energy, even with his base atomic breath, he's able to cause heavy damage to him, bowl him over, and even blast chunks off of him. Then, with 3 shots of the red spiral ray, he's able to completely obliterate SpaceGodzilla, and 1 shot is able to deal with Moguera as well. If you use this sort of scaling, you can actually get Godzilla, even with the finite scaling, up to universal, with say, the nuclear fission performed with the fusion with Rodan, SpaceGodzilla's own statements and calculations and especially if Godzilla and SpaceGodzilla were multiplying their power by the others, almost like the Potara earrings in Dragon Ball. This exponential sort of increase would mean that they easily hit universal levels of AP, even without dimensional scaling. And with it, they would be growing at such an absurd rate, you would probably be able to call them multiversal. Now, for speed. As I mentioned, it's stated that the universe is infinite in size and endless in expanse. We have statements that SpaceGodzilla comes from edge of the universe to Earth will grant him infinite speed. We also have a statement objectively that his ability to go faster than light is through accelerating infinitely. But there is more. Back to Rebirth of Mothra, Mothra Leo gains a form called Lightspeed Mothra, and in this transformation, he's able to fly back in time by traveling at the speed of light. Since SpaceGodzilla is also the speed of light, if not 3 times the speed of light, being able to go back in time through raw speed is listed as immeasurable speed. But this is not the only time we see time travel in the verse. In Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, the machine called TARDIS is able to fly so fast that it accelerates through galaxies and then back in time. This same machine is then used in Mecha King Ghidorah, and when Mecha King Ghidorah returns to the past, Godzilla is actually able to observe him. Godzilla is also able to tag SpaceGodzilla's crystals with his atomic breath and see his flight. So one can argue this actually grants Godzilla immeasurable speed reaction time. We also have a statement that the bird of Amaterasu is able to fly through time and dimensions. This should again warrant immeasurable speed. Orochi is able to tag this being. Utsuno is able to block his attacks, and Godzilla is mentioned to be on par with them both. This should again grant Godzilla immeasurable speed. If you reject this high-end scaling for SpaceGodzilla, with his statements of being able to absorb infinite energy and such, we still have his stellar scaling. Now, we know the infamy of this statement. One of Godzilla's cells fell into a black hole, which, as stated in the Shoutout Ghidorah video, the black hole is the trap of the universe able to destroy hundreds of giant stars. This should at least make the black hole solar system level, and so with a cell surviving would be an impressive feat. The cell then escapes the black hole, which is stated to be impossible. We then see that SpaceGodzilla absorbs 7 different colored energies that are stated to be from the explosions of stars, aka nova. Supernova most likely, but one could argue even hypernova or gamma ray bursts, as again it is mentioned that SpaceGodzilla and Godzilla are the most powerful things in the universe, the apex predators of the universe, and the strongest beings in the universe. This would put them above beings that embody the sun, things that can shatter the stars, creatures that can destroy planets, and things that can survive black holes. So thus, it's not an outlier for them to be at this tier, at the very least. But consider that a single cell is what was surviving all that force. How many cells are in SpaceGodzilla? Well, thanks to a lineup done by the friend Dynamania, we could see that compared to a blue whale, SpaceGodzilla is much larger. So much so that if one assumes that a cell is star level, SpaceGodzilla would be over galaxy level before he comes to Earth. We also know he's then absorbing infinite energy on top of this. This also means that Godzilla being able to damage SpaceGodzilla in the first fight would make him at the very least multi-solar system level in base, which would again rank him at the levels above Super Mechagodzilla. So in conclusion, the stats of Heisei Godzilla are as such. He grows exponentially over the course of the series. For his attack potency and durability, he is at the very barest of minimums, so much more powerful than planetary that being thousands of times planetary doesn't even register to him. Being able to destroy stars, even at this low end, would only make you on par with him, but at the lowest ends, more likely stellar tier, since it's hypothesized that Biolante was when the cell entered the black hole, if not solar system level or multi, if not solar through potentially low galaxy levels, if you take the statements that 84 and 89 scale above the Showa version. He then grows hundreds of times stronger, then thousands of times stronger, so much so that if you take the solar ends, he would reach multi-galaxy level, if not universal outright. But with extra context from crossovers that he scales to and other series that he scales above, Godzilla would be above 4th dimensional, infinite energy, multiple space-time universes, and so would be at the very least universal plus on a scale of power comparable to, say, the feat performed by Super Saiyan God Goku, or at a lower end, Buhan in the anime of Dragon Ball Kai. Then Godzilla grows even more powerful against his cosmic clone SpaceGodzilla, to such an extent that with 3 red spiral rays, his full power, he can obliterate a clone of himself, who would be able to take thousands of times his own attack potency. As for his speed, we have him being stated to be within the subsonic ranges for travel speed, easily supersonic in attack speed. If you go further, he would be at least light speed, if not massively faster than light plus, potentially infinite, inaccessible, or even immeasurable speed in combat. Thank you all for watching. Look forward to next time either covering Godzilla vs. Destroya or one of the alternate versions of Heisei Godzilla. I'm yet to decide at the moment. I also plan to cover verses such as Monster Hunter, other variants of Godzilla like Godzilla Earth, and potentially some anime, maybe a little One Punch Man, a little Dragon Ball here and there. For updates on all those projects, tune in next time.